Hello, everyone. Welcome to Season 3 of Excel TV. This is episode number 40, Season number 3, episode number 1. How you doing, Sylvia?
I'm doing very well, Rick. Happy Season 3. Tonight is sponsored by, I don't know if you can see it, my very special monogrammed glasses, which I got from a beloved client over the weekend. So I am really happy about that, mostly because it contains Chardonnay right now. Jordan, how's Ohio tonight?
Oh, it's so cold. It is just unbelievably Cleveland-ish up in Cleveland. Just tons of snow, tons of wetness and coldness. But tonight is sponsored by this orange tumbler filled with water. Got that from the dollar store. No clients gave that to me. How are you, Ginger?
Doing all right. I am in sunny Arizona where it's a very cold 56 degrees.
Wow.
Very cold, indeed.
So welcome. This is Rick Grantham, rickgrantham.com, also of Excel TV, coming to you from Northeast Florida, out here in Orange Park, Florida. Today is brought to you by anything, an analyst's best friend, anything that holds caffeine. So, first up, Jordan Goldmeyer with the Excel Challenge of the Week.
Our last challenge had a bit of math in it, and I know everyone loves math. So remember, Excel stores colors as numbers. For example, if we are going to use the RGB function, you could put in red is 130, green is 210, and blue is 11, and that's going to come up with a very large number. So I asked you, how is the RGB calculated? So let's go take a look. The answer to this is that the first red, and I'll show you a generalized form of this in a second, is multiplied by 256 to the 0th. Now remember, 256 to anything to a 0 is going to return a 1. So it's multiplied times 1. The next part, the green, is 210 multiplied by 256 to the 1. And the last one, 11, is multiplied by 256 to the 2nd. And these numbers are all added up. And let's go take a look at the generalized form of this, so where I have the RGB. Now, you may be looking at this and thinking, that looks familiar if you've done any sort of binary, or if you just remember converting base systems back in high school. So yes, I know everyone remembers that, but this is actually a way of converting something that's at a base 256, which is the amount of colors that each of these have. This is just a way of converting those into a single number. So the ones I have grayed out here, I grayed them out because generally we don't really write them, but that's what's really going on in the background. So let's take a look at the winner. That's Ryan Shredder. Congratulations, you've won. I have reached out over to you on the blog, so make sure you follow up with me via an email to claim your prize. All right, so let's talk about the first challenge of the year. It's a good one, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we all know you can create these incel spark lines in Excel. You can use this repeat function that I have over here. So here I'm repeating the pipe symbol. I'm saying repeat it 50 times. Now the problem with this system, let's just go back one. The problem with this, if you just do it like this, is that there's all these spaces in between, and who likes all those spaces? So there's a trick that you can change the font, and it'll turn into sort of a blockier version, which you see down in A3, and that's the one I use in my book. It's the one I use on clients' dashboards. It's the one I use for the trick. So there's actually two fonts, at least two fonts that I know of, that allow you to take those pipes and turn them into one condensed bar or column. So my question is to you is, what are they? Now, if you think you know the answer to this, what you can do is get a singing telegram and have Oz du Soleil come and sing it to me, or you can go onto our website, excel.tv, and go to the challenges section and put your answer into the blog post. So that is this week's challenge. I know it's a good one, and I know everyone is excited to do it. So back to you, Rick.
But wait, there's more. In our last episode, we had Ken Puls, Mr. ExcelGuru.ca, on the show, and during the episode, he said anyone who left a comment down below and said, what is something that you did in Excel, something that you solved in Excel, a problem that you had, and the winner of that, from that, we would select one winner, and Mr. Ken Puls would sign a copy of this book from him, Mr. Ken Puls right there. He would sign a copy of this book and shoot it on over to you. Well, of our millions and millions of people who left a comment, we scrolled through all of those and we selected Mr. George J. Mount. So congratulations, Mr. George J. Mount. You can also check him out over he has a website where he talks about business analytics, and included in that is Excel. It's called Economics and Business Analytics. The name of the website is George J, the letter J, Mount, georgejmount.com. So go over and check that out, and congratulations. M is for Data Monkey, signed by Mr. Ken Poles, the author, on its way to you. Next up, a very special guest, Miss Ginger Grant, Miss Power BI Extraordinaire. So welcome to the show. You have a website and a presence called Desert Isle SQL, SQL.com. Would you mind talking about your website a bit and give us an idea of what this is all about?
Well, thanks very much, Rick. My website's basically where I post a lot of technical information that I've either found while I was working on or I find interesting. It's kind of all over the map. I've done Excel, Power BI, machine learning, frankly, whatever interests me technically at the moment. I'm getting into that. So whatever I'm interested in is what ends up on my blog. And I try to blog at least once a week.
So interesting then. Maybe an episode or two ago, Jordan and I were talking about the past business analytics marathon that we did, a webinar marathon. And as we scrolled down the list of people who were speaking, your name was one of them. And Jordan told a story about how you were one of his trainers. Jordan, would you mind reminding us of that?
Sure. So when I was working for Ernst & Young, they said, this makes me sound so terrible, but I had to sit, they were like, and I didn't know Ginger at this point. They were like, you have to sit through this Excel training. I was like, me? Sit through an Excel training?
How dare you?
Right. And it was in Alpharetta, Georgia, which I hadn't even known existed. But so I went down there and I met Ginger, and turns out we knew the same people, and Ginger actually taught me a lot of things I didn't know. So she was an excellent teacher, and I'm glad that they had to sit through that. But that's actually how I met Ginger, and then we both were on that in that marathon, as was Rick. So I thought, oh, this is just a weird coincidence.
And to be honest, I was really intimidated after I found out who you were and you're in my class. I'm like, oh, geez, what's the point of this?
No, you had some good stuff. There were things that I did not know at all. I really, at that point, had very little Power BI background, so I learned a lot.
Well, I'm glad.
So a bit of pop culture reference that Sylvia's brought our attention to, and I'm sure you hear it all the time. Ginger is the Ginger Grant, of course, pop culture, one of the Gilligan's Island, the movie star in Gilligan's Island, TV show, pop culture thing. So I like that your website is named DesertIsleSQL.com for a 3-hour tour. Would you mind talking about the evolution of your blog and how that all came to be?
Well, to be honest, I was thinking of putting one up, and I was trying to do something memorable and not really long. I have a friend who's got a blog that is his last name and solutions and tech and Nick, and I just thought, I want something kind of catchy. And someone's like, well, you do have your name. I'm like, oh, that'd be so cheesy. And they said, no, I don't have any artistic skills whatsoever. They're like, well, you don't have to make it look like Gilligan's Island or anything. I'm like, oh, well, then I can do it then. So I just have something you can remember. If you are of a certain age, if you're millennial, chances are it means nothing to you.
Ginger, is your blog, is it real, or do you kind of delve into other tangential topics?
Yeah, I've done a lot with Excel because Excel is where people are doing a lot of data. Excel is the single largest data store in the world. Microsoft says, it depends on where you look, either 1 billion or 500 million users. What I think is awesome about Excel is that no matter what the technical capability, everybody knows Excel. So it's kind of a good starting point. I mean, you tell somebody, that you're a computer programmer and their eyes glaze over, and then you mention that you teach Excel, they're like, oh, Excel, okay, and then they can relate, and people start warming up who don't have anything to do with anything technical. One of the things that I think is great about what Microsoft has done is with Excel is basically bring people into a lot more interesting data-related topics just based on the fact that everybody knows Excel.
Sure. So, can you, because I know your blog probably started out as Desert Isle SQL, but you've branched into many other topics. So, can you talk about maybe the evolution of that? You know, how did it go from SQL into this sort of data generally, you know, and how it touches Excel or R, machine learning, things like that?
Well, it's kind of a reflection of where I'm at. I started out, I started out doing .NET, and I'm not very good at front-end stuff, so I went quickly into the back end, and then I just kept on going back into data. And so I've done a lot with you know, data and SQL, and so that's kind of where I started. But from there, I realized it's really not. I mean, everything you put into a spreadsheet is really data. And everything that you're trying to get out of a database, the same thing. And then you have to give it to somebody in a format that's meaningful and useful. Well, that's all Excel is. It's meaningful groupings of data in a way that people can understand it. Well, that's the goal of any database, too. I mean, having data in a database is worthless unless you can pull it out and give it to somebody in a way that makes sense to them, and that's what Power BI is. R does a lot of that. Machine learning, again, it's analyzing data. All this gets back to really the same thing that Excel does, which is kind of an interesting thing. And frankly, I dropped SQL, but hey, I paid for the website for 5 years, so I'm keeping SQL. But you know, it's really gotten a lot bigger than that. It's just wherever you happen to store data and whatever you happen to do to analyze data. And really, Excel is where I think all of it started, but it's branched into a lot of other things. One of the big things about Power BI is its ability to tell a story from pictures, because a lot of people are really picture-oriented, and the data that you present in a spreadsheet just doesn't do it for a lot of people. So that's what Power BI is, and that's what R is to a great extent. It's you know, making pictures of data, you know, analyzing the data. So it all relates, at least in my mind, and on my blog.
So when you said you started with .NET, so at that point you probably called yourself a programmer, I imagine. So what's the name of, since data is so new, what is the name of the thing that you do right now? What would you call it?
Well, I like calling it data science, but that's way too highfalutin, and I don't really think I have the background for that since I don't know enough stats, I would say yet. But I basically think I do data analysis and presentation. And it depends on whatever source it comes from. I mean, I've done some stuff with Hadoop. Again, just another giant store of data. Excel, it really doesn't I don't think it really matters. It's just the tool that you're using to give people data in a way that makes sense to them. And what I do is trying to make sense of people's data. You know, whether I put it in a cube or whether I put it in an Excel spreadsheet, or both.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your day job right now? Where you were training Jordan. So in addition to, you know, smart aleck people in one of your training classes, what is your day job? What do you do day in and day out?
Well, I'm a consultant for Pragmatic Works, which is a little company out of Florida, and I do training. I'm teaching a class in data science for Pragmatic Works in April. I've got another Excel class scheduled sometime this year. I don't remember when. And when I'm not teaching classes, they actually send me to clients. A couple weeks ago, I was at a client in Rochester, New York, freezing by the way, teaching them how to take their Excel spreadsheets and put them into Power BI. This week, I'm working on an SSIS package that takes data from SQL from Oracle to SQL, so they can do analysis for it using the SQL application. So I basically do Microsoft data pretty much wherever it happens to be lying around for various clients who are willing to come the time with Pragmatic Works.
Well, as I go to your blog, desertisleSQL.com, as I go there and look around, certainly it's very heavy in Power BI, particularly very recently, so that seems to be something that you're very much into right now. So with that, I think it'd be a good point to hand this over to Sylvia to talk about the topic of the week.
So, Ginger, can you kind of just walk us through, from the perspective of an Excel person, because those are the kind of people that we connect with here at Excel TV, that maybe don't have a lot of exposure to Power BI. Where do you go about getting started? How do you navigate all the there's Power BI online, and then there's a bunch of Power BI features that are kind of built into Excel. So how do you help those people who are new to it kind of get started?
Good question. Well, maybe for a little bit of background. For one thing, when Microsoft was looking to get into the self-service BI, which is where they positioned Power BI, they looked at, hey, what are we going to do to give people self-service business intelligence? They're like, well, obviously Excel. Everybody has it. Everybody knows it. And so starting in 2010, they started loading up a lot of features that they called Power BI, which is business intelligence, into Excel. And of course, with 2010 is when you really got, you got Power Pivot's full data capabilities to do data analysis in Excel. And with 2013, and you also got Power Query in 2010 as well. And in 2013, you got two additional powers. You got Power Query, Power Map, Power View, and Power Pivot. The 4 powers, as I call it. So that all came with 2013. But the big problem is, and this was an issue in the class that I had with Jordan, is that not everybody has Excel 2013. Well, if you don't have Excel 2013, you don't have Power View. And if you don't have Power View, then what Microsoft has really built to be their self-service engine, you don't have it because it's not in 2010. So what they did instead is they built in Power View to SharePoint. Well, a lot of people don't have SharePoint either. They do have SharePoint. They don't have a Power Pivot gallery configured. So all this just got complicated just because of the versions. If you have Excel 2013, you have everything Microsoft intended for Power BI. You have the ability to link up a lot of data. You have the ability to do visualizations. You have the ability to do maps, and you have the ability to do Power Query, which is a great way of getting data from any source. A lot of people get stuff straight off the internet. But the one problem that people have, again, even when they have Excel 2013, is that you really do need a 64-bit operating system and a 64-bit version of Excel for you to be able to put a lot of data into the product. And if you don't, you may be frustrated with the features of Power BI because you'll run out of memory. And so for all of these reasons, it's still a great tool as long as you've got 64-bit, hopefully at least 8 gig of RAM, then you can use all the functionality that Microsoft has built into it. By functionality, I mean that creating a data model, doing either Power Query or connecting to Power Pivot instead of creating a data model and then displaying it with Power View. To be honest, Power Map never really took off because it makes its end product as a movie, which isn't really that useful for people.
That's what I've been saying this whole time.
Yeah, nobody wants. I mean, yeah, because you create an MP4. Great.
Right.
That's nice.
No, the map part is cool.
Yeah.
I found a use for that at work, but no, the MP4 part, the tours, taking a tour of a world with 3D column charts, it's like everything I dislike. The data visualization.
Yeah, because it's somebody else controlling it. The idea of self-service BI is lost there because you're being served it up, right? But so what Microsoft did is they took all the stuff that was in Excel, which you still can use. They're not taking anything out of it, and they're like, okay, we want to get rid of the problem with the memory. We want to get rid of the problem with the fact that people have different versions, and so they created a new application and they made it free. Mm-hmm. And that free application, even better, right, is Power BI Desktop.
Okay.
So Power BI Desktop contains Power View, just like pretty much almost like you do in Excel, and it contains Power Query, and it contains Power Pivot. But of course, they don't call it that because it's a different application. But all that functionality is baked into the Power BI Desktop. And, of course, it doesn't have some of the nice Excel features, no VBA, the drill-down capabilities not really there. But if you want to play around with Power BI Desktop, it's free. And if you go to the front page, they've got a bunch of getting started videos that are really good. So I encourage anybody who hasn't played around with Power BI, go download the free desktop version, and as soon as the start screen comes up, look at the getting started videos, and then I think that really helps you understand what you can do with the application and what it's good for.
So, quick question for you. I have a client right now who's primarily an SAP client, but they're exploring Power BI as a potential reporting tool, right? Because, like you said, it's free, and they don't have to worry about $1 million enterprise licenses for these big tools. And the people who are primarily looking to use the tools right now are just getting data dumps from a system, and they're using it in Excel anyways for budgeting and for other things like that. What have you seen as being the biggest shortcomings so far? So if it's free, certainly that's a big thing, and it already being fairly pervasive and people knowing how to use Excel kind of natively. What are the biggest shortfalls with where it's at right now as a product?
Well, where it's at right now, okay, the desktop version is free. The idea that if you wish to distribute it, yes, you can pass around their PBIX files that you can pass around. But the goal that Microsoft thinks that you're going to want to do is that you're going to want to pass it around to people in your organization. And that's what PowerBI.com is, which is meant to be the distribution area of the stuff that you would create in the free desktop application. And that costs $10 a month, $9.99. It's the Ronco pricing. Nobody ever rounds up to 10, right?
That's a deal breaker.
Right.
But it's $10 a month, and for that, then you have the ability to load everything into a web version, and then you can share data that way. Well, right when you do that, you turn off a lot of people. You get the "we aren't going to go cloud" conversation that happens right there, because a lot of people are like, "We're not doing cloud." And Microsoft is working to address it. They are working on an on-premises version of Power BI right now. It's not been released, but they knew that some people said, yeah, we're not doing that. I will say I think some of the administration features are kind of light. I kind of recently, one of the kind of neat things that they did with Power BI is they allowed people to design their own custom visualizations, which I thought was a really neat feature until I went to use it. And I did a blog post about that, and 2 hours after I posted it, I had 2 comments from people at Microsoft promising to fix what I didn't like about it.
That's cool. That is cool.
Yeah. But what I don't like about it is if you do a custom visualization, you get this warning every time you want to use it. This is not supported by Microsoft. Are you sure you want to continue? Oh, great. What do you think if the client thinks of that, right?
Right.
I can tell you what my client thought, and I'm like, I'm going to get rid of it. Yeah, that would be great. So I also highlighted on my blog the fact that they say in the middle of this web page that I didn't read very carefully that you can't remove any custom visualization that you embed in a report. Cannot.
So once it's in there forever.
Right, which means that you have to do what I did, which is delete the whole thing and start over.
Ah, oof.
Oh man.
So it's still buggy.
Yeah.
They're still working out.
Administration things, yeah, because you can add a visualization, but you can't remove a visualization. I mean, come on.
I think. Well, it's a good thing Microsoft watches this show, so they're going to be writing in. Now, here I have a question because my experience with the other BI platforms, Cognos, Business Objects, SAS has like visual and analytics, Tableau, a good one as well. Is this going to be, and maybe Rick can also answer this as well, is this a real serious challenge? So I know it's probably kind of a challenge to Tableau, but really thinking of like the enterprise visualization suites, like is this maybe even a year or so going to be something that could be a major contender, or is it still kind of in its own little space?
I'll jump in first. I'll since I'm the novice with Power BI, and then let the cleanup hitter come in and knock it out of the park. So my opinion so far, and I talked about a client a little bit earlier, is as we downloaded the desktop version and we tried to connect it in testing directly to SAP BW, which is the data warehousing engine, for SAP, there were no native connectors. There was a native connector to SAP Business Objects Universes, but that would mean I would already have the Business Objects licenses. I would already be building the semantic layer, and so from where I sit right now, there's, especially for database connection, there needs to be. There are workarounds where you have to go to third-party tools and third-party connectors, etc., or do some fancy legwork in SAP to kind of make the connections happen. But for me right now, it's a bit difficult to just open it up for your $10 a month and think you're going to make some pretty difficult connections. What are your thoughts, Ginger?
Well, for SAP, I know that Microsoft has a fix for that. It's the enterprise data connection. So that is something that they are addressing right now. I look at Microsoft kind of like, and I read this from ZD, one of ZD publications, so I'm kind of stealing this, but they're what's considered a fast follower. For example, we all know that Excel was not the first spreadsheet on the marketplace. Mm-hmm. That went to Lotus 123, which of course, was what everybody thought was the coolest thing ever, right? When's the last time you've seen that? I haven't seen it in years. So what I think Microsoft is doing is, as I know that they are putting in an inordinate amount of resources on it, and I think that they are going to be able to compete with Tableau, who's the industry leader according to Gartner, in about 2 years, given the fact that the amount of information that they're putting out every month for releases is astounding. Like, for example, what you're talking about, Rick, they've got a fix for that. Already.
I will talk to you after the show.
Yeah, and just like stuff that I'm like, well, that's really annoying. For example, I'm a Microsoft VSP, which means that I'm under NDA with them. So I can't necessarily say everything, but I'm on their Power BI advisors group. And some of the stuff that I was complaining about, they've already got fixes that are happening. One of the things I can disclose is that one of the big things that people complain about with Power BI is that how you share or distribute information. For example, if I'm at a client, they cannot, I cannot log in to the Power BI website on site because I don't have acme.com email address. I've got a pragmaticworks.com email address.
Right.
I can only share files between other acme.com users. The fix for that is in the works. It's all over Twitter. They're working on it now. I think that'll be out in about 2 months. So they're very responsive. People be like, that's stupid. So it's not there yet, and like some of the administration stuff is missing. But every time that I've seen something that I thought was really, really annoying, many of them have cleared up over time. So one of the things about, for example, Power BI features, technically Power View in Excel, that people found really, really annoying. And if you use Power View, I really feel bad for you because unless you've got 2016, you still deal with this. You can't pick your own colors. Who wants to create a graph and only have like sets of colors to pick from? They fix that. So I think they're really responsive.
Can you tell our audience just about that color complaint, in case they've not heard this yet?
Oh, well, what it is if you have Power View in Excel and you are creating a visualization, you have a set of colors that you have the ability to pick from. So it's a certain range of colors. There are like 6 or 7, but let's say that you're working for a company, hypothetically speaking, and they've got a really thing for like Pantone colors of yellow and black that must be on every report, hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, hypothetically. That's not something that they thought that was aesthetically pleasing, so they did not include that in Power View, which means if you want your reports in that particular color shade, sorry, can't do it. You can pick from the approved color shades that Microsoft has made available to you. So, and
there were 7, basically.
7, yeah.
Up until recently.
Yeah.
Okay. So, a lot of really great information here, Ginger. So just to kind of recap before we get ready to move on to our next section soon, I'm seeing in my teleprompter. Let's say I am that one really enthusiastic Excel person in my organization. My IT, maybe they're a little, slow to react. Management is a little behind the times, and I want to do something impressive with Power BI. What's my best place to start? Do I want to maybe just get my own copy of Power BI Desktop and start making a bunch of jiggy visualizations, saving them as PDFs, sending them to my boss and saying, hey, look what I made? Like, I meet one of these people in every organization I train at. They're the hardcore Excel people, and they're kind of at the mercy of their management and IT departments that are often slow to get excited about these things. So what advice would you have for a person like that?
I would definitely download Power BI Desktop, assuming that you're an administrator on your machine, and do it that way. The reason why is that, again, the cloud thing, having your data in the cloud can be a really big thing for some organizations, and if you're trying to promote new technology, it's best not to annoy the daylights out of them. One thing that I will also bring up in terms of the We Hate Cloud thing that Microsoft has addressed, with the enterprise data connections, your data is not in the cloud, just your pictures are. Your data is all on your servers, wherever it happens to live. So they're kind of addressing that right now before even the on-premises version is out there. So that's another, so I think you can talk your way around the We Hate Cloud, but if I was trying to convince somebody, I would definitely do my visualizations in Power BI Desktop and show them. And the other thing, too, is that if you want to get into some really cool visualizations and you've got Excel 2013, you can do some really cool stuff in that as well. And you can import a lot of things that you would create in that directly into Power BI Desktop as well. So you can kind of go back and forth. As a matter of fact, if I'm doing a data model, I do it in Excel first because there's the ability that I have to take that to Analysis Services Tabular directly, another tool that I may do if they end up with large amounts of data. So if I am picking where I'm going to do a proof of concept for a data model, I pick Excel for that reason.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Well, thank you for that. So that was a discussion around Power BI. There'll be a lot of links from things that we talked about down in the show notes. But now let's move over to the Excel tip section.
This is something I learned very recently, and it's so easy, and I just wish I'd known it. So I often have to create things in Excel where I have to line them up. Now, my typical method of doing this is using the Snap to Grid feature, but it turns out I don't actually have to do a Snap to Grid all the way, or at least I don't have to flip it on because there's a keyboard shortcut that will get me there. So I have this drag me button. This will be the only time I ever use 3D on a spreadsheet, 3D bevel, just to demonstrate this. So please don't judge me. Now, if I just hold Control and I move it around, it doesn't really constrain me here. And this is sort of annoying because I have things I want to line up, like labels, things like that. I'm a big fan of using this text box. So actually, if you hold Control and Shift and you drag it right, it will keep it on the same sort of plane. So you see that it prevented me from dragging it any which way. So I can only drag it this way to the right, and if I try to go down, it does the same thing. So it's going to line up based off of the grid. And this is very cool. Now, because you can really just line these up, and if you had a race of doing this, you would call it a drag race. Anyone know?
Bada bing.
Been working on that one all night. So this is my, thank you. This is my tip. Use that Control Drag feature to drag along the grid. This is a great item. I'm very happy to have learned it because I've been turning on Snap to Grid like a chump this whole time. So Control Shift, remember it. And that is my tip.
Thank you for that, Jordan. Sylvia, I believe you had a tip as well.
So I love the index function for a variety of reasons. And I think there's been some talk about, Power Query lately and data shaping, and I don't know if this would be a candidate for Power Query, but I'm going to show you another way to unwind this data. And what I mean by unwind is, well, you see you have these addresses here, and they're not really, this is not database friendly, right? So we don't really want to have these 3-row addresses because you can't do anything with them, right? You can't sort them, you can't really do a whole lot. It would be really nice if we could just move this apart into 3 separate columns, right? So rather than doing a cut and paste for the next, 18 hours, I'm going to use a little something called index. And first I'm going to remove all this so you can't see what I did. But before I actually show you how the formula works, a couple things to notice about these records. So each address is 3 lines, right? So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So 3 is our magic number, so we're going to type 1, 2, and 3 across H1, I1, and J1, right? Then going down column G. Now these are just going to be, sorry, my screen's moving about a bit. My mouse is a little oversensitive. Now here in column G, I've added some numbers, 0, 4, 8, 12. What's that all about? Well, each record is 3 rows, right? So just keep that in mind. We're going to start with 0, then we're going to add 4, and we're going to add 4 more, and we're going to add 4 more. So these are just multiples of 4. Okay, so now that you're completely confused by my explanation, it's all going to magically make sense when I fire up this index function. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get the name in column H, the first line of the address in column I, and the second line of the address in column J. So I'm going to use this first version of index, and my first argument, the array, is going to be the entire column A, right? I'm going to just lock that down with some $signs so it doesn't move when I copy this formula across and down. Now my row number, take a wild guess. How am I going to get 1? Because I want to grab the first row. Well, I'm going to take this number here, lock down that G. I'm going to add that number there from column H. And I don't need a column number argument because we only have 1 column, so it's implied that it's going to be pulling from column A. And I get the first name, and when I copy that down, oh, look at that, I get all the names, and I copy it across, and I get the second line of the address and the third line of the address. So basically, all I would need to do is if I wanted to, this would be 28. You could use a formula, or you could use autofill to get those multiples of 4. But basically, you want the final number to coincide with the final record count, if that makes sense. So if I had, 104 addresses, I would want these values to go down to 104. And so it's basically just a very simple index function that pulls from one of these rows in column A. And the way that I got that number is using these 2 little helper numbers. So there you have it. That is my tip. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm going to just, when in doubt, give yourself your own applause. And I'm back. Hi, everybody.
Thank you for that, Sylvia. Ginger, I believe you also had a tip.
You'll notice I've got a calendar here, value here of the year, and I've got total sales, and I've got a space for prior sales, but I don't see anything that says prior sales. Let me show you what I've got going on here by looking at my data. So, if I look here at my data model, and this is, of course, Power BI desktop. I love how it says not responding. Thanks, guys. All right, and I've got a simple model here, and I have a date table. Now, you'll notice that there's nothing up here that, like you have in Excel, that says that I can mark as date table. Nothing that I can do that with. And if I look at my data here for my date table, I'll show you that I've got a date key, and this is my date key. Notice it's a number. It's not a date, and that's how my data looks like, so that's what I've got to work with. So, but I don't have any way, again, of marking anything as a date. So when I do a calculation, for those of you familiar with DAX, you know that you need to have a date table that you mark as dates. So I've got in my fact table here for internet sales, I've got a calculation for prior sales, and that uses the DAX function of same period last year. And to have same period last year, you have to have marked it as a date table for it to work, and that's true if you are in Power BI or if you are in Excel. If you do not have that marked as date table, it won't work. Well, what I did to make this work, and I won't bore you with that part of it, was I actually took this model and I created it in Excel and read it in straight. So when I do that, if I, and bring it in, and I have the exact same model here, notice I've got my prior sales working. And if we look at my data model, it's the exact same model. The only difference is, trust me, it'll show up here in a minute, is that I read it in from Excel rather than creating it in Power BI. And that way, when I do that, and I go into Fact Internet Sales, and I have my same prior sales here, and I'm using the same period last year. If I go look, that's what makes it work. If you want the step-by-step instructions for how to import data into Power BI from Excel, I've got it on my website. It's Desert Isle SQL, but if you are trying to do a DAX date calculation, you'll need to do it from Excel and not in Power BI. And oh, by the way, they are planning on fixing this soon, so they told me last week. But until then, that's it.
Man, it's great to just write a blog post and suddenly Microsoft is in contact with you, is telling you they're going to make some changes. So that's awesome. I'm going to send you all my bug issues from now on. So thank you for that, Ginger. Appreciate that. So now let's move on to the what's up section, or what's happening in your neck of the woods. So first off, here in the U.S., here in the United States, maybe this doesn't play well around the world, but there was a big Powerball contest where somebody won over $1 billion, or a group of people collectively won that, and that created a bit of a fuss over here. So I'd like to point you to the spreadsheetguru.com. We did a good blog post and created a Powerball simulator, and it's good just to look at this and to think through, or to watch the thinking of how this would be put together. How much are you spending, et cetera, how would this all work, and how would a simulator work for this sort of stuff. So, and Chris Newman, or Chris Macro, also allows for the download of the Excel file. So I encourage you to go and take a look at this. Secondly, we'll go over to Mr. Excel Guru. So the guy from our last show, Ken Poles, created a great blog post talking about using Power Query and merging tables using inner and anti-joins. So all the different ways that you can make joins in here is a great blog post. I recommend that you go out and you take a look at this. Next up, the BA webinar. So this happened in, early December. So as you can see, we talked about Jordan being there. Of course, Ginger's there, and I spoke as well. Of course, Matt Allington and Chris Webb and a lot of other people, Ken Race, that we respect quite a bit. The recordings of these sessions are now available. So if you missed the session and wanted to go check it out, please come over to /2016/learning/webinars and come and check these out and get registered to go ahead and view these. Well, this brings us to the past BA conferences coming up here very soon. So in 2016, on May 2nd, the general sessions on May 3rd and May 4th. In San Jose, the Fairmont San Jose is the next Business Analytics Conference. Wow, this was a lot of fun last year. And we'll look at the speakers here, the session speakers. A lot of really cool people out here. So you got Rob Colley over at PowerPivotPro.com, the owner over there. You got Jordan Goldmeyer. I'm really excited to talk to Dan Filstra again. We had a good time talking to him last year, especially when he came on the show. We got Ginger, who's on our show right now, will be one of the speakers. I'll be there as well. And Alice Hamilton and Ken Pulse will be there again. So as you scroll here, Mark Russo, which is one of the SQL Server and Power guys, Ken Wright. So just quite a few people who are very well known in the Excel and the business analytics community. I recommend you come over here and take a look at this and consider your conference dollars wisely and considering the past business analytics conference. Next up, also remind you of March 3rd and 4th and March 7th and 8th in Auckland, the Australian Excel Summit South. It's in Auckland, Sydney, and Melbourne. So come check this out. Some really cool people over here. Zach Barisi, who we like a lot, has been on the show. Bill Jellen's been on the show several times. Ken Poles from our last show. John Peltier, of course, from season number 1. And, of course, Charles Fast Williams as well. So a lot of really great people here. So I recommend you go take a look at this as well. Another great Excel conference. Well, the next things to show you is we've been talking about it pretty much all night, Power BI and how to download the desktop version of that. So we have powerbi.microsoft.com. I recommend that you go and check this out. Listen to this episode a few more times. A lot of the things that Ginger talked about as far as what you can do with it, what some of the limitations are, and how quick all of the updates are coming out. And just go ahead and download this and take a look at it. Next up, wanted to bring you to Desert Isle SQL. So this is just a 3-hour tour. This is our guest blog. You can see everything around Power BI, the gateway, etc., custom visualizations, etc. So there's a lot here on Desert Isle SQL. If you're not familiar with it, I'd recommend that you come over and take a look at this and put this as one of your go-to places to check in a few times a week. You can see she's releasing content. Looks like, several times a month, sometimes several times a week. So thank you for that. And the last thing to bring your attention to is where you can find this episode. So if you go over to excel.tv, some interesting things are happening over there. You go over to full episodes, Excel TV, we are now in season 3. Haters gonna hate, but we're still here. So too bad. Hey y'all, guess what? The internet's free. You can't kick me off. We're still here. So as long as we have an internet connection and a webcam, nothing you can do about it. So come over here to Ginger Grants, and we'll fill this in with some more content later on based on the episode. If you scroll down, you can click here. We'll update this episode early next week with an edited version, and come down here and post a comment. If you had any questions about this episode or wanted to interact with Ginger, this is a great place and a great way to do that. Lastly, we'll stop. Jordan, I believe you had news as well.
I do. I have some fun, terrific news. So I'm going to jump over here. Everyone can see my screen, I assume?
Yes.
All right, so I am looking at the University of Cincinnati's Center for Business Analytics. Those who live in what they call the Miami Valley area, so Kentucky, Southern Ohio, Indiana, know that the Center for Business Analytics does classes for organizations. They do a lot of professional development courses, so I will be teaching an Analytics and Excel course there. That will be Thursday, March 10th through Friday, March 11th. It's a 2-day course from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. This will be my 3rd time doing it. What's interesting is that this is, at least for me, I really enjoy it. I meet some people I've met online. This class is actually one of the best attended courses they have. The organizer said to me once that he had never sat through a course where everyone stayed past lunch on the 2nd day. So people stayed in my course. So it's just a very indirect way of saying that it was very popular, and it's something I really enjoy doing. And if you've ever thought, hey, I want to see how you do some of that stuff in your blog, some of the stuff you write about, I want to see it in action, do it in a group setting, this is a great place to do that. Now, the fee is a little steep, I know, for some of our viewers, but if you're with an organization, I know the University of Cincinnati does deals with different organizations, especially if you join their center. So the course fee is $595, but that's really an investment for what you'll learn. And I've also talked with the organizers, and we are going, Excel TV will be offering a discounted rate once we have that figured out. So we'll let you know more about that. If you're in the Cincinnati area, please, we would love to come see you, stop by to the Excel course. And there will be lunch served, and the lunch is always really good, which I know is super important. And I will have a link about that coming up here soon. I know that at the University of Cincinnati page is not exactly a great link. Here, let me flip this screen sharing back on. So yeah, we'll have a link about that up on my blog, and we'll also have it up on Excel TV and through our social channels. You'll be hearing about that soon. So remember, that's in March, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you for that. Sylvia, I believe you had news as well.
I do, as a matter of fact, Rick. A couple of items. One, Saturday, February 13th, I will be doing an Excel Lovers special Valentine's Day CPE open to the public in Los Angeles. That will be announced very soon online, so I'll be sure to post that on the Excel TV social media channels, etc. And secondly, some of you may be wondering when can we get an ebook by Sylvia Juhas? Somewhere down, we can download it online, maybe even throw her a couple bucks for all her hard work. Well, I'm here to
Sylvia,
tell you.
I went to the store earlier today, and that's all people were talking about. It was a little awkward, to be honest with you. I was like, we always got to talk about Sylvia,
Well, apropos, tonight, here on Excel TV, for the first time, we are announcing a very special partnership. So, the briberies have all worked, the checks have cleared, and I'm officially partnering with Excel TV. We will be selling an ebook by yours truly on the Excel TV site. Details to be announced on our next episode. Right, Rick? So,
yeah,
it's downloadable. It will be all in 100-some pages, full Technicolor, glorious. Greatest hits, from my perspective as a trainer, greatest hits Excel tips and techniques that I do regularly in my training gigs. So look forward to that in Q1 of this year.
So thank you for that. So you were probably dismayed that we made it to season 3, but guess what? we are expanding out into print now. So take
right.
that. We're going all commercial. So thank you for that, Sylvia, and there'll be more information coming from that. And Ginger, I believe you also had some news to share, something upcoming for you.
Yes, and March 16th, for those people in the Phoenix area who are interested in learning R through GDI Phoenix, I am going to be teaching Intro to R on May 16th at Interface, which is downtown Phoenix. If you are interested in more information, I'll have it on my engagements page starting tomorrow, because I found out about it today, and it's on the gdiphoenix.com page for more information. But it'll be on my webpage under engagements. They're starting tomorrow.
Well, thank you so much for that. So, thank you, Ginger. So next up, where can you find us? Gosh, we're all over the place. But in addition to that, we're on LinkedIn. So if you come over to LinkedIn, you'll see there, go over to groups. There is an Excel TV group, and our group is now reaching 565 members. And as you can see, if you come over here just to the right, just the quality of people who are in this group, everyone from Bill Jellin here, and you just keep on scrolling over. Gosh, there's Jordan. There's just a ton of the movers and the shakers really in the Excel community. So if in your professional life you'd like to interact with some of the thought leaders, the publishers, the blog owners, etc., in the Excel community, I recommend that you come over to the Excel TV group. That's group number, if you care about this stuff, 7473731, the Excel TV, and come over here and check us out. Also, Ginger, how can people find you in addition to the Desert Isle website that we talked about? If a person wanted to get in contact with you, hire you, get some training, get some Power BI, how would they go about interacting with you? Where can people find you?
I spend way too much time on Twitter at Desert Isle SQL. You can also subscribe to my blog, and feel free to reach out to me that way. If you tell me not to publish it, we can just start sending emails back and forth starting from there. So either way, definitely Twitter, because I'm on there all the time.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Ginger, it's not often. Actually, I can count, but it's not often that Jordan comes back from anything and says, "Wow, I really learned something." Now, it's not that he doesn't learn things. It's just
It just
admitting
takes a
that
while.
it takes a while. He has to process it. There's tears in the corner. And so first off, congratulations for being a person that he's called out as being someone that he's learned something from. But then also, even just teaching me on this show some things around Power BI and wanting to reach out to you after the show and compare some notes and see how we can possibly get you engaged in some things. So thank you so much for being part of the show. And really interested in seeing you at the PASS Business Analytics Conference. I believe that's in May or so. So thank you so much, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your show.
Thank you. So everyone, gosh, season 3, it started. We're going to a new format now. So what that means is, well, maybe new format's wrong, but we're going to a new timing. By that I mean, for the first 2 episodes, first 2 seasons, we pretty much did 20 or so, 19 or 20 episodes a year. We're moving to a monthly format now, which means no more shows in January. You'll have another one in February, another one in March, and we're going to focus a lot more of our time on upping the quality of the show, improving the amount of content and the quality of content that goes onto our website, making it easier to navigate, etc. And also working very much on ensuring that our newsletters out to you are both timely and professional. Just really looking for quality over quantity. And so as a result, we are decreasing the number of shows. So we will not see you in 2 weeks. We may see you in 2 weeks just because that'll be February, but we'll definitely see you in February. So until next time. This is Rick Grantham, along with Sylvia Uhas and Jordan Goldmeyer, reminding you to keep on excelling. We'll see you next time.